Hello everyone, it's me Uncle John. Today I am going to read S66064, The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. Chapter 1. No one even dreamed that the planet Earth was being watched. No one even gave much thought to life on other planet. A few scientists, at most, imagined that there might be some sort of life on Mars, some sort of plants or maybe animals, but no one thought of danger. People went about their work and their play. They were sure that humans were more intelligent than any other living thing. But those who watched us were more intelligent than we are, more intelligent than we could even imagine. And need had brightened their minds and made them sharp. Need had hardened their hearts. Mars is much older than Earth and much smaller. It is also much farther from the sun. Mars has become very cold in its old age. Its seas have shrunk, and its ice caps have grown. Soon life there will become impossible. The Martians must have watched Earth through telescopes. They saw green hills and blue water, and they felt hope. While Earth was a place they could live, they carefully planned their move. The Martians think of people on Earth as we think of monkeys, or even ants. Human life means very little to them, killing us so that they could live. They could live without, so that they could live would not matter. But don't judge them too quickly. We humans have killed off many animals with no thought. The bison is gone, so is the dodo. When Europeans moved to new lands, they swept away the people living there. So who are we to judge the Martians? Our problem with the Martians started 6 years ago on August 12, 1902. An astronomer, a scientist who studies stars, was watching Mars. At midnight, he saw a huge ball of fire shooting toward Earth very fast. It disappeared in 15 minutes. There was almost nothing in the newspapers about it the next day. Just a few lines on a back page. Only a few scientists knew about the strange ball of fire. My friend Ogilvy was a well-known astronomer, and he was excited. The next night, he asked me to watch Mars with him. I looked through Ogilvy's telescope. Mars looked so small in the blackness. After all, it is 40 million miles away, 40 million miles of empty space. That night, we saw another ball of fire leave Mars. A reddish flash appeared just as the clock struck midnight. We watched the fireball travel toward Earth. We had no idea then that these two balls of fire were spaceships. I thought that Mars was trying to signal us. Ogilvy laughed. There's one chance in a million that there's anything with a brain on Mars. He thought that we were seeing meteorites. That's the name astronomers give to falling stars. He thought that a shower of meteorites was hitting Mars, or maybe a volcano was exploding. But that was not the end of the strange ball of fire. Each night at midnight, another flash was seen, night after night, for 10 nights. The newspapers picked up the news at last, but still no one was worried. Life went on as always. Then came the night of the first falling star. That's what we thought it was. Hundreds of must have seen it. A line of fire high in the sky rushing to the east. People thought it was just another meteorite, but it wasn't. That night, no one looked for the meteorite. But Ogilvy went to look for it very carefully, very early the next morning. He was sure it had fallen near Woking, our town. And find it he did, in a field outside of Woking. The force of its landing had made a very large hole in the ground. Some nearby grass was on fire. The thing itself was almost all buried in sand. Only the top stuck out. It looked like a huge tin can. It was about 90 feet across. Ogilvy was surprised at its size and shape. Most fallen stars are round, but this was a cylinder, a giant can that seemed designed by someone. Ogilvy wanted to go right up to it, but the thing was still too hot from its flight. He could not get near it. A strange hissing noise was coming from inside. But strangest of all, to my friend was what he saw next. The top of the can was turning. This was no meteorite. It took Ogilvy a few minutes to understand. Something was inside the thing, and that something was turning the top to open it. Good heavens, said Ogilvy. There are men in there. They must be half roasted to death. They're trying to get out. Then he thought of the flashing ball of fire on Mars. He guessed that the thing came from Mars. The cylinder must be a spaceship. Ogilvy wanted to help the man inside get out, but it was still too hot to get near. He ran wildly toward the town. He begged for help. People thought he was a madman. Madman, no one stopped when he called to them. Then he saw someone he knew, Henderson, the reporter. Ogilvy told Henderson what he had seen. The two men went back out to the thing. It was cooler now. Air was either coming in or going out of the rim. It made a thin, sizzling sound. They tapped the side of the thing with a stick. No one answered. I think they must be dead, Henderson said. Ogilvy agreed. So the two men went back to town. Henderson sent the strange story to his newspaper in London. Meanwhile, the word of the amazing thing spread through the town of Woking. Some people marched right out to the thing. They wanted to see the dead man from Mars. So did I. Chapter 2. By evening, there must have been a few hundred people round the pit. Some had come from far away to see the thing from Mars. There were piles of bicycles and a fancy car carriage. The crowd was excited. I passed the boy running. It's moving, he said to me. The top keeps turning. I don't like it. I'm going home. The boy surprised me. I could hardly wait to see what was in the thing. I pushed my way through the crowd. I saw a man climb out of the pit. The crowd had pushed him in. Ogilvy called to me. He and Henderson were in the pit. They were digging the thing out. Help, keep the crowd back. Ogilvy said, we don't know what's inside the cylinder, but I had no time to do anything. Just then the top of the huge thing came off. It fell into the sand. I think everyone watched for something like human to come out. I know I did. Instead, I saw two bright discs like eyes. Then out of the shadows came what looked like a little gray snake. Then another and another. These were tentacles, but I could not see the creature they were attached to. A sudden chill came over me. Someone screamed. The people could not take their eyes off what they were seeing. More and more long tentacles appeared. The people all moved back. Horror took the place of surprise on their face. Soon everyone ran off. I was alone, too scared to move. A big gray round thing rose out of the cylinder, slowly, painfully. It looked like a great big head. No body, just a head. Two big dark eyes looked at me. Under them was a mouth without lips, shaped like a V. It shook and panted and dropped spit. The Martian monster had no chin. What it did have were tentacles, lots of them. Its skin was very oily. Its breathing was very loud. The air on Earth and the pull of gravity were different than on Mars. The breathing and moving were difficult for the Martian. I felt sick with disgust and fear as I watched. Suddenly, the Martian fell over with a loud thud. Hola, howled the monster. It disappeared into the hole. Then another Martian came out of the cylinder. At that, I ran in a mad panic. I stopped at the first group of trees I saw. I stood panting. Other people were standing around like me. We all stared in horror at the pit, scared but unable to stop looking. For a second, a leash of thin black whips flashed over the pit like the arms of an octopus. Then a thin rod rose up. On its top was a flat metal disc. It spun around. What could be going on there? The sun was going down, but other people still stood there as I did, frozen with fear and fascination. We couldn't stop looking. What ugly beast, said a neighbor of mine. What ugly beast? He said it again and again. Hardly anything was moving in the pit. The people began to feel braver. Slowly they moved closer to the hole. A few walked boldly into it. Ogilvy and Henderson went right up to the pit. They waved a white flag. A white flag means peace to us. The men were trying to tell the Martians that we meant them no harm. All at once, there was a flash of light. 3 green smoky puffs came out of the pit. They were very bright, almost like flames. At the same time, I could hear a hissing sound. Soon the hissing became a loud hum. Slowly, a larger shape rose out of the pit. A beam of hot light came out of it. The beam hit Ogilvy and Henderson and the white flag. It set them on fire. The crowd turned and ran in terror. I stood staring. The beam moved. Everyone and everything in its path flashed into white flame and fell. The trees and nearby houses burst into flame. Soon there was a fire all around. The merchant's light beam melted glass and metal, everything. All this took place so quickly that I was stunned. I could not move to run away. By a stroke of luck, I had escaped the beam. I saw the heat ray machine sink back into the pit. I was still alive, alone, and without protection in the dark. But suddenly fear hit me. I turned and ran in a panic. I did not dare to look back. I was crying like a child. Chapter 3. I kept on running until I could run no more. I fell and lay still at the side of the road. When I awoke, I was confused. How did I get there? Where was my head? My collar? Then I remembered the pit, the thing with its deadly beam, my terror. I started to walk, but I felt weak. I walked like a drunk man. Life around me seemed normal. I passed workmen, women with a basket, children. A train rushed by. I was amazed. I had just come from such horror, and now it was gone. How could that be? I stopped to talk to a group of people. What's the news? I asked. People seem more silly about something, said Simi. What's it all about? Haven't you heard of the monsters from Mars? Said I. Quite enough, thanks, she said. All the people laughed. I felt foolish and angry. I tried to tell them what I had seen, but I could not get the words out. They laughed again. You'll hear more yet, I said. I shook my head sadly and went home. My wife was shocked by how I looked and scared by what I told her. Her face was white with fear. They may come here, she kept saying. They are very slow, I said. They may kill those who come near them, but they are too weak to get out of the pit. Saying this cheered me more than my wife. She was still worried. On Earth, gravity is 3 times as strong as on Mars, I explained. But Ogilvy told me so. The Martians weigh 3 times as much on Earth as they do on Mars. They can hardly move. They can't hurt us, don't worry. The newspapers said the same, but we did not think of 2 other facts. Earth has much more oxygen than Mars. The extra oxygen would make up for the stronger pull of gravity. And the Martians had machines to do their work. Machines that could move very well. Chapter 4. The Martians came out of the cylinder on a Friday evening. That night, most people acted as if Mars were not even in the sky. They worked, ate, and went to bed. Trains stopped and went on as always. Only near the pit were things strange. A few houses were still burning. The people in nearby houses kept lights on all night. They did not sleep. Hammering came from the pit all night long, and now and then a puff of green smoke rose into the sky. The cylinder was like a poison dart stuck into the earth, but the poison was just beginning to work. At about 11 o'clock, soldiers started arriving in walking. The military knew the situation was serious. At midnight, some people saw a green star fall, the second cylinder. On Saturday, I got up early. I had not slept well. The milkman came. As always, he said that soldiers now circle the pit. The soldiers have orders. They may not destroy the Martians. Not unless the Martians attack first. The man next door was in his garden. He gave me some berry. Another one of those spaceship things fell last night. He said the pine woods around it are still on fire. 1 cylinder would have been enough. Those Martians will cost a lot of money, he said, laughing. But then he grew serious. Poor Ogilvy. After breakfast, I walked toward the pit. I saw some soldiers on the way and talked with them. None of them had seen the Martians. So I described the heat ray to them. They began to argue about how to fight the Martian. Crawl up to them under cover, said one, then rush them. No, said another. You can't hide from this heat ray thing. It'll cook you. You have to dig a hole to be safe. You and your holes, said a third. You sound like a rabbit. Another soldier asked me to describe the Martians. I did. Octopuses, said he. This is what they are. We're fighting against fish this time. They talked on as I left them, but I could not get near the pit that day. Soldiers were all around, so I went home and took a cool bath. The day was very hot. The newspaper said the Martians stayed in the pit all day. They kept hammering. They were getting ready for the fight. Another man had tried to signal them. He had a flag on a long pole. The Martians ignored it just as we would ignore the moo of a cow. At about 3 o'clock, I heard the thud of a gunshot, and then moved us. Soldiers were shooting at the second cylinder. They helped to destroy it before it opened. At last, the big field cannon arrived. The soldiers were sure it would do the job. My wife and I were having tea. We heard the blast that came from near the pit. We heard a great crash very close to us. It shook the ground. The college next door was tumbling down. The treetops burst into flame. One of our chimneys cracked. Broken pieces of it fell into our flower bed. My wife and I stood amazed. Then it came to me. The college no longer blocked our house. The heat ray could hit us now. I grabbed my wife's arm. We can't stay here, I said. But where are we to go? Where are we to go? Asked my wife, and then she answered her own question. To my cousins in Leatherhead. I looked down the hill. People were coming out of their houses, scared. So they would all be leaving, walking. Most of them would take the other road. I was sure the road to Leatherhead would be less crowded. Stay here, I said to my wife. You're safe for the time. I rushed to the Spotted Dog Inn. The landlord had a horse and a cart. I rented it for 2 times what he asked. I said I would have it back by midnight. What's going on? He asked. I told him that I had to leave my house, and that was true. My wife watched the horse and cart. I ran into a house. I threw out silver and a few other things into a tablecloth. Trees below the house were burning. I walked as fast as I could. Just then a soldier came running up. He was going from house to house. He was warning people to get out fast. My wife and I were soon on our way. The road ahead looked clear and peaceful. Behind us was red fire and thick black smoke. The road was dotted with people running. The Martians must be setting fire to everything the heat ray can reach, I said. I made sure the horse moved very fast. Chapter 5. The heavy firing on guns stopped suddenly. The road was peaceful. We got to Leatherhead by 9 o'clock. The trip went well. The horse had a rest. I had dinner with cousins and a silent wife. Then I left for home. The horse and cart had to be back by midnight. I would keep my promise. As I got near walking, I could see a red glow, driving storm clouds mixed with black and red smoke. All at once, I saw a green light falling through the sky. It landed in a nearby field. It was the third falling star. More Martians. But then the storm began. Lightning flashed. Thunder blasted around my ears, soaking wet. I drove on as fast as I could, and then I saw a new monster. How can I describe it? Huge, taller than many houses. It walked with big steps on 3 long legs, smashing trees with each step. Its metal body clattered as it walked. Steel ropes swung from its sides. The clatter mixed with the sound of thunder. Then suddenly a second metal monster appeared. It looked just like the first. It was rushing toward me. I tried to turn out of the way. I pulled the horse's head hard to the right, too hard. The car turned over. It fell upon the horse. I was thrown into a pool of water. I crawled right out and hid in some bushes. The horse lay still. Poor thing, it was dead. In another moment, the monster walked right by me. It kept going. Then it was gone, but I could hear it calling to the fire. First monster, Alu, Alu. I was just soaking wet. I needed to find some place dry and safe. A small hut. I banged and banged at the locked door, but there was no answer, so I crawled into the woods. Monster did not see me, hidden by the trees. I pushed on toward home. If I had been thinking clearly, I would have gone back to Leatherhead, to my wife, but I was wet, tired, and blinded by the storm. All I could think of was home. But I still had a hill to climb. That was the hardest task of all in the storm. Near the top, I stepped on something soft. A flash of lightning showed me a pair of boots. It was a man. I turned him over. He was quite dead. Second lightning flash showed me his face. He was landlord of the Spotted Dog Inn. He'd never again need the horse and cart I had used. I felt sad, but I kept going. At least I saw my own house. Once inside, I quickly locked the door. I felt safer now. I sat down on the stairs. My head was full of huge metal monster, and the dead face of the lander of the spotted dog. I shook all over. The end.